trying to get as many like Bay Area people as I can, because it's such a, oh my God, in terms of metal history, that it's
Oh
such
yeah.
a just a key point in the timeline, I feel. And unfortunately, so many of those bands are like, not a lot of people know who Laws Rocket are. Bitch only has like not even 1,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. A lot of these
Yeah, I
groups
mean,
and bands, a lot of people don't listen to as much as some of the other ones, like, and the gap is insane. And I just kind of want to give some of these bands some recognition, and let them talk
yeah.
about themselves, instead of like Lars in a chair being like, yeah, there was this band and this band.
Yeah, he's kind of become our Dave Grohl kind of this, he's like, and anyway, I
Yeah.
mean, it's all perspectives, but yeah, when I was growing up with them, with all these different bands, I mean, they were the bands that like I could afford to go see, which would be like $2 in the middle of the afternoon on a weekday. And those
Wow.
bands never got any real draw play, like bands like Pillage Sunday.
Hmm.
Uh, there was a band, Stone Vengeance, all black band, uh, uh, which we deemed the original black metal. Those guys, and they still play today, and they're great guys, and they were always a solid unit, but never got their due. There's a lot of bands like
So
that, but
many, so many.
there is. So I mean, you can dig as deep as you want, and you'll fill you'll fill a lot of holes caught talking to a lot of those guys. So
Yeah,
and if
man,
there's anything
totally.
I can do to ever help with connecting you to some of those people, they are lesser known, but once you dig a little bit, some of those early demos were real telling. I mean, Legacy's demo
Yeah.
is the biggest one of all time from that era, and you can see it today. But I mean, some of those demos, I mean, I would say the Legacy demo was better than Metal Up Your Ass and stuff like that. Some of the No Life to Leather demo tapes and stuff like that. Just their sound and the songs were, I don't know, more cohesive. They just
I-
had it dialed.
I'll definitely revisit that. I can't remember even like the last time I've even like listened to that Legacy demo. It was Billy Milano who gave them the name Testament, right? I forget where
You know,
that Testament comes from.
to be I don't know. I think I've heard Chuck Billy in interviews talking about it. My connection with them was really through Law's Rocket, because Alexis Olson was this local guy who started he kind of followed Jeff Weller around. Who Jeff Weller was like the manager for Law's Rocket, and like I kind of started off saying, like Law's Rocket was on this, you know, headlining the local clubs. So they were like kind of the local. I always equated them to Kiss, because they were kind of like the local level Kiss, where they have pyrotechnics, smog, folk fog machines, big in your face, kind of a little over the top, at least for our crowd. The spandex and the leather and the chains and all that stuff. They really were into presentation, and they kind of took that top marker. But anyway, Jeff Weller was this notorious manager for them, who was, he was, like the Peter Grant. He
Wow.
was the manager. He fight to the death to make sure his band stayed on top. And Alexis was a guy I went to high school with, and
Wow.
so he kind of followed Jeff around. And Legacy was essentially Alexis's first foray into band management, and he kind of learned his steps through Jeff. So, and since I knew Alexis, and I also knew Alex Skolnick, I went to high school with him.
Wow.
And so Alexis said, Mark, you can draw. Can you do some flyers for us? So we'd sit at, Alexis's mom's kitchen table, or Formica table, and we'd sit there and, draw skulls and stuff like that and all that. But some great shows, and had some fun with that. And you're like 14, 15 years old, and you're drawing for bands, I think I was about 16 at the time when I started working with them.
Yeah, you were doing like jackets, right?
Yeah, I mean, I started out, I was a misfit kid, kind of like everybody else, trying to find your, tribe. And and back then, I know everybody says, oh, nobody was really listening to metal and stuff like that, and there wasn't really a big, a metal push at any, like I came up like around 81. I saw ACDC Back in Black tour, and that just was like a mind blower. And that kind of got me into the heavier, darker stuff. And then you had like 1982, where I mean, I always find that to be the divining line, was like 1982 for me, for a lot of the guys that I grew up with and gals. Uh, 82 gave us Number of the Beast, Blackout, and Screaming for Vengeance. And to be a kid and go see all those concerts in that one year, and I mean there are countless other albums that came out, but those
Wow.
three were like, and going to those kind of shows, I was like, I was into drawing. I was always into drawing little doodles. I draw the logos of bands on my book covers and stuff for school. And then I got introduced to an army surplus store through a punk rock friend of mine, uh, where you could get, these cheap army jackets for like $3, and they took pen and ink like super well. So I drew, Judas Priest, Scorpions, Motörhead, ACDC, those logos on my jacket, and I would wear it to the shows, and people would be, well, asking me how I got that and stuff like that. And then I would wear it to school the next day. And so anyway, that's how I kind of got the word around that I could draw, and I could draw, logos, and it was heavy metal driven. So people were like, Alexis was like, well, you should draw a flyer for us. And that turned into, you know, you could do a backdrop for us, and you could do this and that and the other thing. So, I mean, that's how I found my road, was really through, drawing on jackets, and my jacket. And then it became like a small cottage industry for me. People would go, oh, can you do a Led Zeppelin? And I'm like, I'll trade you, an Aerosmith ticket or something for, Swan Song on the back of your jacket. And that's how I got into so many shows when I was that age. So it was a real catalyst for me to kind of not only find my tribe, but find my way into more of these shows and experience things. And then it turned into, doing flyers and backdrops for bands. And yeah, and like Legacy, that was a big one. That was really my first backdrop. And I had Alexis and Alex wanted the Legacy backdrop, and they had this. They used to wear these little priest collars. That was their shtick on stage. So, and they really wanted this pentagram that was part of their logo to really pop out. And I was a kid, so I was like, oh, we could use silver paint, and then the light, from the stage lights, would hit that pentagram, and it would jump out from all the rest of the stuff that was going on. So I painted on my mom's living room floor. I painted this big black bed sheet with this huge silver pentagram. And then I put the skull on it and the logo and stuff like that. And Alex and Eric actually came to pick it up from my house when I was living in my folks' house, and we pulled it off the floor, and all the silver paint had sunk through the
Oh
fabric.
no.
And there's this 6-foot pentagram in my mom's living room floor. And they were like, they knew my parents, and my dad was particularly kind of he was a little bit rigid. He certainly would not abide by a 6-foot pentagram in his floor. but man, they took off. They folded it up and they said thanks and they took off real quick. And so
Wow.
I'm on the floor by myself scrubbing this pentagram out of the floor when my mom comes home and she's like, what goes on when I'm not here? And I'm like, Mom, I swear it's for a band. And she's like, what band? I don't, and she thought it was, anyway. So there, for a while
Wow.
there, I couldn't bring candles home or anything like that. And, you know, and
Gonna
I,
summon
I would
demons in the
play
living room.
Venom very quietly so she wouldn't, notice performing rituals.
Wow. Damn. Was that the first band you like really worked with? Legacy?
Legacy, I would say, yeah, Legacy was pretty much Legacy and Ruffians were kind of like almost at the same time. There was most of us. We went to this Berkeley High School, which was in the center of Berkeley. But then some of the other kids from the neighboring neighborhoods went to El Cerrito High. But Berkeley High had this big park right across the street, and everybody from all different schools would go there because we party in the park. We party in the park. Smoke weed, drink beers. We go to Safeway and snag a bottle of whiskey or whatever in someone's backpack. And anyway, but we'd have boom boxes out there, and the bands would come because there's so many kids there. The bands would come and they'd pop in their demo tape on a boom box, and it was like almost better than a show because most of us were 15 to 17 years old, and there was a lot in the Bay Area. There were 21 and over clubs, there were 18 and over clubs, but usually us younger guys couldn't really go and see shows. So they started planting the seeds in our heads with the demo tapes. So
Oh.
Legacies and Ruffians and other people would just show up and they'd pop in tapes, in somebody's boombox, and then you got, ooh, who the fuck are they? So everybody, oh, sorry, I shouldn't be swearing, but coming over and checking things out, and that's how I like that people saw my jackets and stuff like that, and other people who did various tasks. It was like that one area just wound up, at least from my perspective, becoming kind of a focal point for not only the fans but also a little bit of the people that started working with some of these bands, and there were those personal friendly connections that just kind of organically sprung up a lot from that park. So for me, that's how I got to know, like, I think Law's Rocket actually was probably the first band because Jeff Weller saw me in the park with my jacket, and
Hmm.
he wanted me to paint some stage set stuff for him. Um, so yeah,
Wow.
and then when Alexis would come over to Jeff's house to learn about management, we were like, hey, oh wow, you working with them too? And so anyway, we just kind of pulled it in. But and it was shortly after the Laws. I mean, we're also talking about a time period of a school year where literally, you know, I'm going from like going to comics and comics and buying like Swamp Thing comic books or drawing an ACDC logo on my bedroom wall to like doing flyers for bands and like getting into these shows and getting invited, like before the
Wow.
band got there, and watching people set up. And I got all into it. I was like, can I help hump gear? Because it was like all like, it was like this big rock and roll fantasy. It was just like, I'd think about ACDC and it was like, I saw the Let There Be Rock movie, and they're showing the roadies pushing stuff, and
Yeah.
they had the cool shirt on, and you're like, fuck, I want to be a roadie, that's what I wanted. Yeah, drawing's all right, but I want to push gear around. I was just like, I don't know why I geeked out on that kind of stuff. But so that was almost more exciting for me than to go to the shows.
Wow.
Shows were great, but being able to, like, working for your friends or these bands that you kind of looked up to and you heard in the park, you were like, fuck, I'm part of this. And there was a lot of ownership. He really, I mean, I was a couple years younger than most of the other guys in those scenes, especially the guys that were in the bands. They were 2, 3, 4 years older than I was. So I kind of came up a little later, even though I was younger. And there were a few of us that were like younger that were like always up front at the shows, or, you know, uh, we just became diehards. And a lot of our friends' bands started like Legacy. I mean, they couldn't get even an opening slot at places like Ruthie's Inn and stuff like that. Um, Not until, a little bit later. That's why, Metallica came in and they were opening slot. This is Metallica, and they're an opening slot for like Exodus or
Yeah.
Loz Rocket, a couple of these other bands. But that's how the hierarchy kind of worked. But once you
Interesting.
saw Metallica and to a degree Exodus, there was a moment in time where Exodus were like they were on point, they were on fire. There was just no denying that this band was destined for something. Same thing with Metallica was probably one cut above that, where it was just you're sitting there watch. I can only imagine what it was like seeing like the Beatles at the Cavern Club when back
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
'60s, where it's like this just overwhelming universal feeling of everybody in that audience are sitting there watching something that you know is just so much above the rest. It just cuts through like, nah, they're gonna be in a stadium pretty damn soon. You could
Wow.
just tell. It just had that feeling. So and there were glimmers of that and starting to bubble up with the rest of the bands. And Death Angel was probably one of the most, I would say, consistently just high functioning, great stage show, songwriting. I mean, they're just a solid. They're starting to get their due, which is great.
Yeah, they started super young too.
Started super young, and they had to fight that. They also, I think, they're they were Filipino. They were younger. Uh, People were big into genre, but also classifying people. So it's like, oh, they're the little kids that can play Kiss songs, and it's like, no, fuck you. These guys know what they're fucking doing, and they're not just young. It's not a novelty, that they broke free of that early on. And then the tragedy that with the bus that happened for them really kind of shook the foundations on them. But
Mm.
they recovered, and it took a little bit of time, but they recovered. Just a strong band,
And they
great
still have
band.
great albums today. Some of the stuff
Oh,
they've put out recently has been
absolutely.
excellent.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That's so interesting. And you were such a key, almost like being a part of a scene must have been so awesome, and the networking aspect. Because not only like with Laz Rocket, but you ended up doing stuff with Metallica too, which is must have
Yeah.
been mind blowing.
Well, I mean, everything you my perspective was always like I have no point of reference. Most people growing up, you kind of feel like, because you listen to the older kids and their music, and you're like, man, you saw Hendrix, you saw Leonard Skinner, you saw, you know, you rattle out, you saw Zeppelin, but I was too late. So you kind of, each generation I think has kind of goes through that similar, like, oh man, it was too late. I
Yeah.
missed, this band when they were in their heyday. Uh, and it's always what you hear, and you don't know what's around the corner. So you just go, oh, well, I like these guys, but they're playing in, my friend's backyard. So, that's going to be my music, is going to be the but then those same bands kind of ratchet up, where, I mean, Metallica, like I said before, and Exodus, you could see the writing on the wall. It was like they came out of the box ready to just destroy, and and be great bands.
Yeah.
Um, and but Laws Rocket and Ruffians and Death Angel to a degree, and some you could see the beginnings of it, but you couldn't really tell what you were going to be. I was just happy that people wanted me to do art for them. Like that blew my mind right there. Didn't matter if it was, at the time, because Metallica hadn't really been there yet, and I had heard about them, but they were already kind of up on a higher shelf. I was just stoked to be working with these bands that may or may not. It wasn't in our head that that any of them were gonna go to that level. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Because we're all kids, we're going to school. It's like, yeah, you played a great show last weekend, but you got a D on your geometry test, so you're probably not going to graduate. You're going to be working flipping burgers. I mean, that's kind of sucks. Sorry for you. And I'll be right there with you, because all I'm doing is drawing your flyers. So I mean, there was no like, oh my god. The mind blowing part for me was that I was just part of what my friends were trying to do, and there was that kind of like mind blowing, like, fuck, we actually put on a show, or actually we did something that wound up that more people saw, and it moved up a level. I had bumped into Metallica many times. A good friend of mine turned me on to them on the No Life to Leather tape. He loaned me, and I listened to it, but I had missed when they had first come up. um, I just couldn't get over to San Francisco to see them. They played in San
Mm.
Francisco, and they played at the Keystones, and it was a little bit more harder to get into, harder for me to get over there when I was that age. Most of my peers were younger, so very few of us were driving at that time. So to get over to San Francisco was a real hump. And it was like you heard things, but you didn't really hear them until I heard that tape. And then they came back and played at the Keystone Berkeley, and that's where I got introduced to them on the Raven Kill 'Em All for One tour. And
Ah.
so all those crowds, the San Francisco guys, were also over at the Berkeley show, and I got introduced, and oh, this Mark, he draws our flyers, and he does our backdrops. Oh, well, we got backdrops already, but I got introduced, and then just that seed was kind of planted. But then I could tell that there was like, wow, that's some next level stuff. I was working for Metallica. Maybe one day I'll be able to do that. And I kept banging on it, and they'd come around, and I'd go see them on I saw them on the Day on the Green, and saw them at the New Year's Eve shows. And, and it was very local. So I was always kind of in proximity,
Hmm.
but they were always that one step ahead, that it was like my talent level was not to that point where I was going to be able to, do something for Metallica. I needed to stay in the crock pot a little longer, I think. And to be honest, I don't really even consider what I was doing, or still do, as art. It's just what I like to do. But it's true, because if I think about it, it's like it's always just exciting for me that somebody wants me to do something for them, because it's a connection. And if I really like their music, then it's even a stronger connection, because it's like, wow, okay, in some small way I'm a part of it. So that makes me feel like, okay, the original intentions are to be part of a tribe, to be part of something much bigger than all of us. So that's always been the drive. But and I don't know why
Yeah.
I go off on tangents. I got a little ADD going, but
No, it's okay.
uh
It's okay.
but
I
yeah.
the more you give, the better, because I find this just so interesting, especially with every like the networking you were involved with, and just being there at an essential point where British New Wave like evolved into something so much different and so much
Oh
more like,
yeah,
whoa, what is this now? And to even
exactly.
like work with Legacy, and I know you like, the Captain Crunch thing. with
Yeah.
Metallica, and like I must have been insane. Like being like, oh my God, like this is, and now like they're probably the biggest band of all time. Recently
Yeah.
outsold Taylor Swift.
Oh yeah, yeah.
This
I mean,
little thrash, Bay Area band.
yeah,
It's just wild, and to have a
it
part in
is.
that is I think really awesome, and that's why I'm really happy we're having this conversation.
Well, I
And I'd love
appreciate
to know
that.
more about getting involved with Metallica and later, doing that Captain
Sure.
Crunch thing. I believe you did something for the Black album, I believe, like a crew shirt design stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean the lead up for that uh, is I mean essentially the I'll back it up because you touched on it and that was
Yeah.
a key point as well. No, but I mean there was a key point. Um, the beginnings of New Album and the exposure and it triggered something in my head that I hadn't really thought about. But that was another connecting point for us in the Bay Area locally with those bands that were pretty much on their trajectory, like Metallica. We'd go. They had a party house in El Cerrito that they lived at. I mean, they lived at. It was really where they stored their stuff because they were always on tour. So there'd be parties there all the time. Local guys like Paul Bailoff, they would throw these crazy parties at Hell House, and but the new wave of British heavy metal, when those albums were really coming in, like kind of like almost like this tidal, like somebody had pulled the cork and it was all just rushing in, and we were all like, but all of us, I mean, you'd be sitting at a party if you were sitting, and everyone's drinking, and somebody would walk in and go, dude, I just got this, and they put it on a turntable, and we'd all just be like, listening to, you'd be sitting next to Hetfield, who's sitting next to Lars, who's usually rolling his eyes because he goes, oh yeah, I've got this, I've already had this has been out for a month. This is before the internet, so we're just like little sponges, and if somebody said, man, I took a chance, I bought this and put it on, we all were just like, that was a unifying, like, holy shit. And you could tell because you're sitting next to like Hetfield, who's going, he's taking mental notes, he's like, I'm gonna use some of this, and Lars was like, I already told you about this guy. But I mean, we'd all sit together and listen to this and be
Wow.
fans together of something totally different. And so that was another part that I think I shared a connection, just like a lot of other people with Metallica. And anyway, I to get into how I was working for them, like I got um I had a lot of trouble with drinking and drugs for a while there, just about 85 to 86, right? When Cliff passed, that kind of was a devastating blow for the Bay Area locally. And we really all, I mean, everybody was just touched by that, and just it kind of shook. And I was really struggling with some addictions that I needed to get past. So part of yeah, I went down a really dark path, and then I had some good friends that kind of helped get me out of it. And part of me getting out of it was focusing on things like back to doing some kind of artwork, some kind of creative outlet that I could, kind of direct my energies into a more positive direction. I was never a big sober guy, but I was like, I got to do something different because I'm going down the wrong hill.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, some people, mentors of mine who worked at Tower Records, uh, they knew I loved music and they knew I liked to draw, but they wanted to get me into an art job, and that was like, they didn't get paid much, but they would hand cut all these big advertisements for bands for Tower Records. I don't know if you remember Tower Records. They used to have these big three-dimensional displays inside the Tower Records
Yeah,
advertising records.
I live in Boston, and I was born in the 90s, so that's why I
Oh,
find a lot of this interesting. By the time I was
oh
born,
yeah.
I think Tower Records was completely gone. I know
Yeah.
the Tower Records in Boston. The guy who managed it, Rob Walsh, good friend of mine.
Uh,
He's told me all
oh,
about
cool.
it. I had no idea. And a lot of people don't know how important Tower Records was and how much of an impact
It-
it had on like general scenes and stuff. Just a music mecca, you know. But
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
anyway, continue.
But no, no, no. But that's is exactly right, and that's a great
Just
way to
wanted a
tee it up too.
preference. Yeah.
No, no, because I mean, the older I get, the more I forget that. Like I talk to people, and they're like, "This guy kept talking about Tower Records," and I'm like, and then and all of a sudden they're like, "Well, what? Can you just explain one thing? What the fuck is a record? You know, or you know, vinyl is like what?" And you're
Yeah.
like, "No,
Yeah.
no, no. It's these big. They were used to be really big." But anyway, uh, so anyway, they took a chance on me. They knew I was in recovery and I'm trying to get back on my feet, and it gave me an opportunity to learn how to do this stuff, to make these advertisements for band. And when I got in there, I was just like a kid in a candy store. And I was like, I learned how to do it. I had fun doing it, and it was really a new medium for me to kind of do my art, but kind of take it on a bigger level. And the connection with music was just like it was perfect for me. It was a no brainer. So I just dove into it. And the one thing, it annoyed the manager, but I had all these friends that had now since been signed to Atlantic Records, or or IRS, or Combat, and all these other in heavy metal bands were getting signed. So they had records to promote. And before I was, the guy that would draw a flyer for them or do their backdrop. Now I could do their advertisement, in this record store that was like everybody came into that record store. So like I had friends in this band Sacrilege BC, uh, Streffen, and they were another local band that I I think if you did some story on them, or
Okay.
interview with those guys, there was a lot of people that reference Sacrilege. These
I'll
guys were young guys, but same kind of deal. Just could never get that over the top break. But their first couple albums are just like that crossover between punk and metal
I'll
are
check
great.
them out.
Anyway, yeah, check them out. They're the Sacrilege BC. There was a European band called Sacrilege, and they actually kind of battled it out. And they, my friends had to say, "All right, we'll be Sacrilege BC," and let it
Mm,
roll. But that was back in the day where it was, it was hard to find names. Now you got like, sentences for titles of bands, and it's like
yeah.
shit. Devil Wears Prada and King of the Underbelly of the Titanic, Gigantic. Uh,
A
but
lot of long
so I
names.
would start doing displays for them, and I would do like uh, Testament, and Exodus, and Nuclear Assault, and all these guys. I just start
Nice.
putting up these displays. My boss would come in and is like, Madonna's got a new record, and I'm looking up here at Sacrilege BC, and well, what the, come on, you got it. But I held my ground and kind of battled it out with those guys for a while. But every once in a while, I just thought local store, local bands, keep it going. And and in fact, Lars would come in all the time, and he'd read the Krangs, and he'd go up into the art department, sit there and read the Krangs, talk with us about, see if he could score a couple, promo posters and things like that. And James came in, I did a Danzig display, and he wanted that and stuff like that. So again, kind of another avenue to get in touch with this band. And there was this, they used to have display contests where the record company or label would offer something if you did a display for advertising their album or a show or something like that. And Metallica had this display contest to put in the front window just an advertisement for their show for the first of the shows at for And Justice for All.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I always kind of not taking what I do seriously, and the band kind of felt like they were, they kind of take their stuff seriously, but kind of not. They were local guys, so they like to have fun as much as the next person. So they had just done an interview or something, and somebody called the style of music was like crunch. It was like crunch metal because it was that chunk 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 chunk. And so I heard crunch, and I was like, "Hey man, I'll do a big cereal box, Captains of Crunch." And then I took the pus head drawings of them, and I redrew it and put little pirate hats on them, and came up with this goofy design. It was like a 6-foot tall cereal box, and I shoved it right in the front window advertising. I don't think I even won. I can't even remember. I had bought a ticket to the show because I wanted to go see him anyway. But anyway, I took a photo of it and sent it into the record label. And I had a couple extra pictures, so I just brought them with me just in case I could go see them and hand it to them and show them, how silly it was or whatnot. I couldn't get backstage. It was a great show, but a buddy of mine, Fred Cotton, who sings for Spastic Children, he's good friends with James. So I saw him at the show, and I was like, "Hey, can you going backstage? Can you show James this thing I did and see what he thinks of it? See if it either pisses him off or he thinks it's funny." So Fred goes back, and like 30 seconds later, he comes running out and he grabs me by the collar and he's yanking me in there. And he goes, "And they want to meet you." And I'm all, "What?" And he's like, "No, they want to talk to you about this." And I was like, "Oh," I thought at first I was going to get in trouble.
Uh-oh.
But because I didn't know, maybe they did take things, maybe they did take things seriously, but all of them, Jason, Lars, Kirk, all of them were like kind of gathered around me, and they're pointing at it, and they're all, "Where is this? Where is it? Where is this? This is a real thing. And so they signed it for me, and I told them where it was, and Lars just kept grilling me. Lars was like, "Where is this? What is this?" And he just thought it was he really liked it. He was just all about it. And I said, "You come into Tower Records all the time. Come on upstairs and I'll give it to you if you want it." And he was like, "Yeah." So literally like 2 days later, I'm back at work, and up the stairs comes Lars, and he's all, "Where's that thing? I want to take it." And I point to the corner of our big workspace. And I said, "It's right there." And it's this big 6-foot thing leaning up against the wall. And he's like, "I can't get that in my car." And I'm like, "Well, what did you bring? What do you drive?" And he goes, "A Porsche. I just bought this Porsche." I go, "Fuck, you're never going to get that into a Porsche." I said, "How about this? I'll make you a small one and you could take it in your Porsche." So he was like, "Oh," he just kept going on about it. I don't think he had any ideas about it, but he wanted it. So I said, "I'll make you a small one. Just come back, and like a couple days, and I'll give it to you." And he's like, "All right, cool, man." And then I'll give you tickets to the next show whenever we come back around. I'm like, that'd be killer. I'd love that. So I did it, and I did a layout of it because I would blow this. I would put it on a projector. I draw it out, put it on a projector, and blow it up on a wall to cut out the letters and trace out everything to make it nice and big. So for the small one, I just used that drawing I had done, or the layout I had done. And so when he came to pick it up, I gave him that, and I gave him the layout. And I just said, "In case you want to do a sticker or something, or whatever And he liked it. He took both things and he took off. And that was it. I was like, "All right, well, that was cool. Maybe I'll get a call someday, at the end of the year or whatever for a show, give me some tickets. And I was watching the Grammys when they got nominated for one, and Jason comes out on stage and he's wearing a shirt of this thing that I had done as a goof in the window of Tower Records. And that's when you say, does your mind get blown? That my mind got blown right there. Like, holy crap, there's a guy in Metallica wearing a shirt that I designed. And I mean, full color. I'm like, how does that happen? What? I just couldn't get my head around it. It just totally blew me away. I mean, it was my
Broadcasted
they
too.
liked it, but they liked it. It wasn't just like I like it because I want it. It was like I like it because I'm going to use it. And I was like, what? And from there, it just took off. Lars would come to my work or call me up and hey man, do you have any more ideas? And then the Black album came out, and I would show up to gigs. I used to draw when I wasn't drawing on jackets. I used to get these big illustration boards because they were cheap and a bright white, and they were like $1 a piece, and I get them at a corner store. But they were big and bulky, and but that's what I used to draw on because I got the great right tension on the pen. And anyway, that's what I would do my drawings on.
Wow. That's
So I'd have to
insane.
haul these. Yeah, it was kind of weird. I mean, they're pretty big, but it was like, this was, I didn't have a copier or a scanner or any of that. I didn't have any computer or anything like that. So he's like, hey, can you bring some more designs to the show? So I'm thinking, okay, Metallica, I better come with more than one idea. So I would carry these big fucking boards, under my arm to the shows. And I was, a fan. So I'd go into the pit. I'd be like holding on to them and wrestling back and forth to make it after the show to show them my stuff. And there'd be things I show him and he'd be like, I'm gonna have to redraw that because it's my sweat on my shirt would like soak onto and make the ink run. I mean, it was
Wow.
if
Jesus.
there was a lo-fi bad way to do things, I would do it. It all stems from me, painting my backdrop and having a pentagram on my mom's floor. I mean, there was no end to the learning process for me. Everything was a learning process, and I break a few eggs to make a cake, and that's just how you do it. But
That's
you know,
thrash.
that's thrash. You got to do it, man, and get it to them. So, but that's how it really started with Metallica. And I would do a crew shirt. The Captains of Crunch was like a crew shirt, and then I went to one of the Justice shows and met Big Mick, and who's their sound guy. And he saw me wearing the shirt. He's like, come here. And, he goes, look, we made laminates of that. And I was like, what? So he'd give me laminates. And then somebody said, oh, we did a patch of that. And, it kept snowballing where I would just, they
Wow.
really liked it. They were using it. And then, more crew shirts came, and like I did Trails We Have Crept because I knew Kirk liked, Tales of the Crypt and horror comics, and I
Mm.
was a comics fan, so I did this Trails We Have Crept for Black Album. And anyway, always kind of tongue in cheek and just for fun. And I love the other aspect of which was I kind of intimated before about working for the crew, working for the band, loading gear as opposed to like, being all like, oh, I'm with the band. It's like, no, I'm working for the band. And,
Yeah.
that for me was kind of like a badge of honor. I was like, no, I'm working for the band, and I work for a living, and I like that.
Yeah, totally. Even that thing you were saying about the Grammys, not only the fact that Jason is repping it, not only that Metallica, while they're playing, one of the members is wearing your shirt, but it's on the Grammys. It's
Yeah.
broadcasted, all over the
Yes.
world. It's like the biggest music event Forget
Yeah.
metal at all, like the biggest music events, and there's your
Oh yeah.
design. That must have
And
been.
that in and of itself probably didn't sink in at first. It was just that Metallica was wearing it, but then like a week later, I'm sitting there going, you know how many people saw that? Holy crap! It just
Yeah.
it's almost like you can't get your head around it. It just it's too big, and that unfortunately, I mean, I had a lot of really great years with the band doing stuff for them, and there were times that they really took care of me, and there were times that I kind of felt like I got the fuzzy end of the lollipop. But for me, it's been really like a journey where it's like you start realizing the band is bigger than a band. It's this huge entity, and even though you're a part of it, your part is smaller and smaller and smaller, and then the reasons that you're doing it, like before, I mean, if Lars told me to jump off a bridge back then, I'd seriously consider it, or there wasn't anything I wouldn't do to help, be part of that, and get the accolades too. But it was a transactional, uh, and almost a mutual respect kind of deal, where it was like he would call me, uh, to want something, and that spoke to me. It was like, okay, it's not some manager off in a back room saying, hey, a couple of the other guys in the office had an idea for a t-shirt, what do you think about this? And that kind of stuff is just like, well, obviously, that's not what I do, and that's not for the band. That's to make you feel good about yourself, and it's a stupid idea. So and there were a few of those that came across the bow, and I didn't like working like that, because it didn't ever result in. I wanted to always do something that the fans would appreciate too, because I was a fan. So if it spoke to me, it's a good shot that it would speak to the fans.
Yeah.
And that was always my impetus for doing it. And when the entity Metallica got literally to this, I mean, they nabbed the name Some Kind of Monster. It really was some kind of monster. And I've had conversations, and this blows my mind. I've had sit down, heart to heart conversations with Jason Newsted, because we've stayed totally in contact throughout that from that day he wore that T-shirt on the Grammys
Wow.
to today. We talk all the time. We ask each other like, hey, what do you think about this or something, and we have really great frank conversations, which I would never uh uh divulge or break out on any kind of scandalous level or anything like that. But we've had conversations where, as two people kind of wrestling with like there's a very small group of people that would call working with Metallica a psychological effect. There's a psychological effect that happens on a person that, and we've had great conversations about this, and not woofing on anybody or making anybody feel like they did something wrong, or I did. It was like, it's just the phenomenon of having that proximity to something that is just, you can't get your arms around it at all. Like it is its own entity. It's a planet, and you're trying to catch onto something to hold on, and for why. Uh, uh, so anyway, I go off
I
on a
know, I
tangent.
know what you mean though. It's more than a band, Metallica at this point. It's this like giant company now that
Corporation,
is
yeah,
forever expanding. It's not like,
yeah,
well, in 2003 or whatever, then in the 90s, it ended. Like, this band is so massive. They're
yeah,
putting out whiskey, they're putting out there's it's like Kiss at this point.
yeah,
You can find
exactly.
anything with the M or Metallica on it, and to be a part of it, and it's still growing. This little
Yeah,
band that opened for Bitch and Las Rocket
Oh yeah,
is like massive, is giant, and you can
exactly.
find it in almost like all parts of pop culture now. It's insane. So I
It,
totally know what you mean, where like even I, someone who like kind of only has this like a modern view of Metallica because I never was around in the 80s or like really the 90s. It's just like this force that like it's something that I can't even explain. Like there's no
yeah, I
band
mean,
like it.
yeah, for us it was like you're torn between like, man, local guys are doing great, but then now they're local guys that have like essentially taken over the planet. I mean,
Yeah.
and you're just like, it's kind of, I mean, I guess world domination was in the, the business plan or your mission statement, but to see it actually happen, and then just the distance between where you were with them and where you are in relation to them now, it you can take a little bit of a hit on it, but then you can also just like, I divorced myself of it. I tried to divorce myself of it, and it was personal. There were times where I had, and I'm not going to get into details, but I had, you know, a real disagreement with how things were going,
Hmm.
and the conversation wasn't between me and the person who had originally called me, Lars. There was no those conversations that no longer were happening. Uh, and when I felt like I got a little bit of the fuzzy end of the lollipop, I like to say that, uh, I was like, "Hey, that ain't right. Are you gonna make it? Are you gonna make it right?" And I was told in no uncertain terms, "Love it or leave it." So I said,
Mm.
"I'll leave it," and I walked away. And it hurt. It hurt. It hurt me a lot. But um, I just wasn't. I was too emotionally attached. Almost. It was like, and I've had this conversation with Jason. I was like, I think I got. I think I broke up with them, or they broke up with me. Is this a divorce? And it was, and we've had conversations about it. He's great. He's a solid guy,
Probably a
but we
great person to relate
collaborate on
to.
this. It's a dysfunctional relationship. You're like,
Um,
wait a minute, I'm not getting what I was promised or something. Anyway, but anyway,
wow.
so I
What year
fell
was
out of
this?
grace. That was, I mean, it was a slow burn. There were times where,
Mm.
I would get into arguments with Lars or the management or something. And like I said before, a I had been battling alcohol for a while, and I fell on and off the wagon. Um, and I would, I'd be stupid about it and say, speak my mind when it not necessarily the right forum. Like in a crowded backstage area, I'd stand on a chair, quit fucking me. And Lars would be like, what the fuck is your problem? And he'd, scurry me out, and we'd hash it out or whatever. Anyway, it got stupid for a while, and then we'd make up, and then I'd, do another shirt. And it went back and forth. I
Hmm.
would say probably around the load era was really when I was really struggling with a lot of personal stuff, but the balance of what they were asking me to do was starting to get pretty serious. Where, I mean, I got asked to redesign the logo, and
Wow.
for me, that's like, if my mind was going to get blown again, if there was anything left of it to be blown, that was it. So I got put into, this mode where, it's my own fault, because I was in a situation with with for personal reasons with my significant other. We really needed to. Uh, I needed to bring in a good amount of money to be able to get us into the next level, get us out of some health issues that my significant other was having. So the job came in at the same time where it was like, okay, that's, I'm not a greedy person, but that's a job that's going to command a little bit of money that's going to get us to that exact where we needed to get out of. So it was a lifesaver. It was a lifesaver being thrown to me.
Wow.
So I took it seriously, and my design abilities are not on par with some other people, I'm sure. And I never really thought, but given that opportunity, they asked me to do something, and I put my all into it, and it just kind of never really went anywhere, even though I was being asked to submit more, and it just kind of fell off the map. And I had put myself out there in order to do that. And I'm not blaming anybody. It was just a bad situation for me to be in need of something. And I took the job too seriously, where I think I needed to probably not take it so seriously.
Mm.
Uh, Not
Wow.
that it wasn't a serious request, but that I had put too much emphasis on that this was going to be my a life raft for my girlfriend at the time, who later
There's
became my wife.
wow. So you would
So
probably say there was just like way too much pressure, like
there was a
on the
lot of
design.
pressure, but
Yeah.
I was doing it, and I was sending it off to where I was sending, but I wasn't getting the response that I needed on a timely basis. And here's the record is
Ah.
coming out. I get invited up to hear the final production, and I figured, okay, this is my opportunity to sit with Lars and really, let's finish this up, because your record's ready. Let's get the package done. Let's get this new logo. What's it going to be? And I was waiting for input, and I got essentially, albeit it was very friendly, it was a blow off.
Hmm.
Like, the record label wants to do something else,
Wow.
and okay, why didn't you let me know that, why I was doing? Because you were having me change. Anyway, it became kind of and again, I'm going to precurse all of it. That's on me, because I put all my eggs in that basket. But I really felt like, fuck, man, that they for a little bit of information I could have gone, but this machine was too big, and it's hours on the phone waiting for somebody to pick up, or leaving message, or faxing things off into the void, and you're just kind of like, wow, when you wanted a shirt, you were calling me, and now I need something, and I'm not getting it. So I took it. I took it hard, and it 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 knocked my personal situation into a really desperate one, where we had to just essentially bail on where we were at,
Wow.
relocate, and find, you know, essentially a place where my wife could, she was my girlfriend at the time, but she's my wife now, could recuperate, and I could get back on our financial feet to start again. So, and anyway, that was
Wow.
really just the part that really kind of took my attentions. Like, I gotta find other avenues in order to, shore up my career, but also just like back away from the emotional attachment of what drew me in, which was an emotional attachment. It's weird. I felt like I'm this fan that's straddling both worlds, for good or for bad, where, it's like, I am such a fan that Lars could throw me off my game very easily. I get starstruck around him. I don't get starstruck around many people. He, for some reason, there was this level of just like, you know, he could
The
make me
presence.
fucking, yeah, just a nervous wreck, and it's like, because it was so important. It was like, oh my God, I got this opportunity and I love this band. um anyway, so I don't know
Wow.
why, again, I go off on that, but
Well,
so
that's an
that was,
amazing story, and I assume this was for Load.
yeah, it was for the load. It was either load or reload. I can't remember which. I'm pretty sure it was load.
Yeah,
And
that
that's
makes sense.
where, yeah, I mean, I get calls every once in a while after that to do a little thing here or there. Mostly, I moved over to being more of um, I went over for the end of the Black Album tour to Belgium to see the last two shows of the Black Album tour, and I went with a buddy of mine, Jumbo, who also used to sing for Pillage Sunday, and also Spastic Children. He was this great guy, just a, anyway, sweetheart of a guy. He's since passed, unfortunately.
Mm.
But uh, went over there and I sat with Tony Smith, who was at the time their personal manager on the road, and he told me about the fan club that they were starting. Um, and Jason and him said, hey, Tony was going to run the fan club, the official fan club, Met Club, and Jason and and Jason said he spoke for the band. They want me to design like the membership shirt and be active in designing stuff for the fan club.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's perfect. That's great. That would be awesome. So I started doing that, and I did membership shirts and the fan cans, and there's all different kinds of little stuff. And I would do Christmas cards and things, and it was fun. And I had an avenue, and it also became a nice source of revenue for me, on top of working a full time job and other stuff. But it was stuff I could do on the fly. But I was doing less and less like crew shirts, and I was doing more and more, fan club stuff. So when the Lars and the logo, those started tapering off, I still was employed doing fan club stuff. So that
Cool.
kind of kept me in the mix, kept me on point. But the jobs became fewer and far between, and I was never going to get asked to do an album cover. And I think after that logo thing, I was like, yeah, I'm not. I'll be the maybe occasional crew shirt and maybe some stuff for the fan club, and that was fine, and I felt like I could keep an emotional distance as well as a professional closeness. And it kept me going for a while. And then just like everything, I get older, and you know I miss some of that. I miss doing stuff. So when they did their 30th anniversary, I uh, I had an idea to do. I said, well, they're going to play this film, the Fillmore. The Fillmore is famous for its Fillmore posters. And since Metallica was going to take over for 4 days, I go, how cool would it be to have like your four main artists do a Fillmore poster, a Fillmore style poster, one for each night?
Mm.
And I pitched the idea to management, and they were like, yeah, well, Fillmore's got different ideas. And I was like, all right, well, whatever. Um, but then like a couple weeks later, I get a call, and the management says, hey, we're going to have, you know, you, Pusshead, Squindo, and Dirty Donnie do a Fillmore poster. And I'm like, hey, that's a great idea. It was like, well, where'd you come up with that one? No, I'm not going to go there. So whatever, an idea is an idea, and whatever.
Yeah.
So I got to do it. And it got, those kind of things got me back in their purview, I guess. So everyone, I get a call every once in a while, and I was still working with Jason. Jason was doing his projects and things like that, so I kept my toe in the water. Um, but then after that, not a whole lot going on. And we talked about this Metallica being this huge entity. I found that because I do art for merchandise for other bands and stuff like that, most jobs are going to have some connection to this band that's like you're saying, Kiss. It's like, if I do music merchandise for a company, that company's gonna be doing something for Metallica, whether it's either just an eraser or a pinball machine or whatever. Metallica's got their hands in everything. I couldn't get away from Metallica if I wanted to. So literally everywhere I went to work, there's some affiliation or some business requirement that I have to. So I felt like, like the Godfather. It's like they keep bringing me back in, and it's like, and
Yeah.
so I wound up
Wow.
doing silly shit. We did some socks for them for this one company. I did holier than thou socks. Um, did
Wow.
keg cups, drink them all. There's all kinds of just weird shit that you would do from time to time, and then I kind of missed doing designs, so I called up management, or I emailed management, who I had had shouting matches with, and we'd have, but we'd also have good times. I did a shirt for their crew for when they played Woodstock a while back,
Mhm.
and this manager was like, called me up and said, "Hey, your shirt caused a big problem," and I'm sitting there freaking out, like, what do you mean it caused a problem? And he's like telling me, well, we decided not to do a crew shirt with your design. We decided to make shirts and sell them at the show, and we weren't supposed to do that. And I'm all, wait a minute, what? And he goes, yeah, well, we brought them, snuck them in, and we were selling them. And uh, Aerosmith's manager found out about it, and he got into a big fight with the promoter, John Shear, and they actually like battled, like grappled each other, and like I think Aerosmith's manager bit John Shear on the ankle. They were rolling around on the stage fighting over this goddamn T-shirt. It was some other
Wow.
shit too, but I mean, but that's the kind of relationship I would have with the management. They call. I did a crew shirt for when they played with the Rolling Stones, and and the management called me like the day after the show, and were like accusing me of bootlegging it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they go, you bootlegged that shirt because we saw people out there selling them. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I gave you to the design. Maybe you guys bootlegged it. I was just like, I mean, it was this weird relationship I would have with some of the management, that kind of went back and forth, and some of it was good natured and kind of messing with me, and some of it was like, hey, you know what, that ain't right, so that was
Wow.
all part of that mix. But so anyway, I reached out to that same manager, make a long story longer, uh, a couple years ago when they did their 40th anniversary, and I said, hey, you know I figured if I called you every 10 years, would that be okay that I could ask? And if you ever need any designs, I'm just trying to mend fences here, and I got the itch. I want to do something. So I didn't hear back for like a week, and I figured, oh, I've been put in the spam folder for sure. Guy emailed back and said, hey, sorry I didn't get back to you sooner. We're dealing with something. Yeah, we'd love to have you do something. So I did this design that wound up being, one of their shirts for the 40th anniversary. They had me design a little logo for the 40th.
It's on your
And
Instagram.
oh yeah, yeah, it's on the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Instagram. Then I did a show for Vegas, which actually they didn't like the full color version, so I did this like really quick, like simplified color version of these. I had these two skeletons holding, one was going to hold the American flag, and they were supposed to be politicians. One was Republican, one was Democrat, whatever. It was just the battle of politics, and I probably they didn't like that, so I simplified it into like blue and yellow. Just came up with some random colors, and it turns out that day of that show was the day that Russia invaded Ukraine,
Oh,
and it just so happened to be the Ukrainian flag colors. of these
Oh,
two skeletons.
wow.
So again, there was, no matter what I do when I'm trying to do it, it either it leaks on my mom's floor, it causes an international incident, or Aerosmith's manager is going to go bite someone over it. So I mean, that's been my
Oh my
career from
God.
beginning to end with Metallica, which is a nice way to sum it up, And it's like if I never do another thing again for them, or if I continue to do something once every 10 years,
That was the latest thing you did.
I bet good money that I'm gonna mess up somewhere in the thing. It won't be just a T-shirt. It's always a drama or or something, man. And I kind of like that. I got into
40
the age
years.
where it's like, yeah, I got into the age. It's like, fuck it, I own it. I'm the Raiders. I'm like Exodus. I'm gonna
Yeah.
cough the ball up on the 1 yard line, and they're gonna run it back in for 99 for a touchdown. Fuck, I mean, that's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
Um, I still get asked, so it's still fun.
Wow. So was that the latest thing you've done? That Ukrainian like incident?
So I think the Las Vegas thing was, and the other thing about getting older is your timeline. If it's last week, it's gone. If it's 30 years ago, I got a crystal clear understanding of exactly where it was. It was either right before or right after the 40th. I'm pretty sure it was right after. Um,
Wow.
I had
That's
done,
wild.
yeah, and whether I get a call again next album, I mean, this is the new album cycle, but again, I don't look at it like, ooh, I should submit something. I got nothing. You know what I mean? It's like I don't really have anything on this. And their album covers for me just go farther and farther away from, I don't know. It doesn't
From the
ring the same.
aesthetic. Yeah.
Yeah, the aesthetic is different. It's almost like if there was less, it would be easier. Kind of like the Black album. I mean, there was you know other things to focus on, where this is like, and again, I started it off with saying I got attention deficit issues. I get distracted easy, and I look at that cover, and I don't even know where to start. It's just so many things, not to mention I don't it looks like a Where's Waldo poster. I don't
It
know.
does.
I don't know what they're trying
Yeah.
to say. I must have missed the memo, but God bless them. They're Who am I to judge if they're doing something right or wrong? Because yeah, they definitely have the formula down. They got it, and
They're working with
I
like
just
some high profile like artist, I think, that
oh
Lars is
yeah, I
like
mean that
personally a fan of, who
oh
I
yeah
think did the last three records. But it's like I've seen fans on like Reddit and stuff try to like remake 72 Seasons where it looks more like a Metallica album cover.
yeah
Because now it's like everything definitely looks like it's in like that. It's like, okay, that's a very 2023 album
right
cover. Even Hardwired, like that's very 2016 era
yeah
looking, where
it's
I feel the older stuff is such a, yeah, it does say 80s, but it's such a, it didn't stay in the 80s. You know what I mean?
yeah
Like it lived
it, it,
on. And
it
I
totally
fear a
did.
lot of the art today is like, yeah, that's, very 2016 looking. I don't want that on a
Yeah,
shirt, where that old stuff I think is just will live on forever. And even
that's
like you see people who don't even know Metallica wearing some of that art, you know, and
oh yeah,
and yeah, I can't even imagine how
it's
you
iconic.
feel. Yeah.
It,
What
I think it's. I mean, the the one thing I liked, another big thing I liked about Metallica, even during that period where they were like going from Injustice for All and in Black Album, they really wanted to turn away from that 80s, what Lars would call, like that stereotypical metal album looking stuff.
Kill them all.
And yeah, kind of turning away Kill 'Em All, Ride the Light, or even Master. And during the Black Album was when like Lars was like, that stuff is so stereotypical. That's why we went with the Black Album. You know, we were like turning away from that kind of iconography or whatever you want to call it. And even you stopped using Pusshead's artwork for a lot of the shirts where, you know, before, I mean, it was, those were the ones you bought because fucking they were the coolest goddamn shirts on the planet. You know, with a Pusshead skull put Metallica's merch on the map. And all of a
Insane.
sudden they were like, no, we don't need that anymore. We don't want it anymore. And I'm sure they sold tons of shirts, but they didn't sell as many as they sold of like Damage Inc. or you know, Crash Course and Brain Surgery. I mean, I'm sorry, but there's a classic part. You know, don't be so quick to dismiss your roots. That's all I got to say.
100%.
And
I have that Crash Course poster actually hung up
oh, there you go.
to my
That's
right,
it.
but it's so insanely
I
it's
got
iconic.
the Metallica one. It's
Oh, that's
totally
awesome.
faded now, but I got that back when Injustice for All came out, and Lars came by the record store, and I had just gotten it, and I pulled the bandage off, and I go, "Look what I," and he was just like, "Why in the fuck would you get that?" And I go, "Because Pusshead is the best fucking artist in the world, man." I was just like all about it, and Lars just was like, "What? You're weird, dude. You're just, I'd never get," and I go, "You're never gonna get a tattoo because if you did, it would be a Metallica tattoo because we all know what you feel." And he was
Oh
like, "Oh,
yeah.
no." So, but
Oh yeah. You never did anything with Dave or Megadeth, right?
um, you know, not directly. I for a while there, I worked for a fan club, and it was funny too because, like we were talking about Metallica, kind of touching the tendrils were already a lot already there. I worked for this club, worked for this company in San Francisco called Fan Asylum, and they ran the fan clubs for bands, and they ran like Whitney Houston, Britney Spears, White Zombie, Lenny Kravitz, Megadeth, and Aerosmith. And there were a couple others that kind of sprung up, but and the Aerosmith thing, I was working for that company at the time or shortly after that time where the uh, where I had done anyway. I came back a little later, and I was working for them when Aerosmith's manager came into the office, literally, and told me face to face the actual events of the day that my shirt had caused,
Hmm.
that Woodstock shirt. So I came back and I was working, but I was working for Dave's. For your question about working for Dave, I did the official logo for his Cyber Army Megadeth fan club.
Oh,
So
wow.
I did the eagle with the, you know, the hands going around in a circle and shit like that. And so I would send him stuff, and I did a couple fan club events, shirts for him with the Phoenix when they played Phoenix. Uh, you know, real brain surgery shit. But uh, uh, but yeah, I did their logo, and I got a couple emails back and forth from Dave because he's a hands-on guy. Um, but yeah, I
Wow.
mean, I've been, I mean, I definitely would say my affiliation with Metallica, it you know, got me indoors to do work for a lot of bands, and especially like Motörhead.
Yeah,
Um,
man.
so I mean that Motörhead and Metallica fall in different but similar places of importance in my life. Motörhead were my gateway for the heavier stuff, and when I got a job working for this music merchandise company, Bravado, they had a roster that, you know, for a metalhead was like fucking mind blowing. You had Iron Maiden, Slayer, uh, oh geez, Ramones, Led Zeppelin, Slipknot, on and on and on and on, and Motorhead. So I was working at this place, and I got the job pretty much because of my portfolio, doing stuff for Motorhead, I mean Metallica, and a couple other bands. And I learned production art, so I was doing my own color separations, designing, color separate, getting all my getting my hand in all of it, so I could learn the nuts and bolts, so I could, not control, but maybe nudge things into, different ways to get the better results for me. Anyway, but I was always like, we were never doing designs for Motorhead for retail, so I was like, why is that? And they were, they don't sell in retail, and I'm like, well, that's just dumb, because there's not anybody I know on this planet that doesn't have a Motorhead shirt. And I was like, yeah, but they're all tour stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but they'd sell in retail. So, boss wasn't really willing to spend time on it. Wasn't really our department. But I was a fan, so I was like, fuck, I'm gonna, I'll work on the weekends, and I'll come up with a bunch of designs and submit them. And we did a couple test runs in Europe, and man, they started selling tons of shirts. And then, that kind of mushroomed a little bit, and the band management, this one in particular, well, two of them, Todd Singerman and Stefan Shirazi, who another affiliation with Metallica, who work with Motorhead, were noticing that their royalty checks were coming in from their retail merch, and all of a sudden they were making a lot more money from their retail merch, where they were really not getting anything before. So they inquired, and my boss said, yeah, I got this guy, big fan of yours, and we put some stuff together, and it was starting to sell. So but yeah, it worked out. So they asked who I was, and we started a conversation, and Lemmy started getting involved in the conversations. He's like, can you do something for this tour? Can you do something for this? I had an idea for this.
Wow.
And I was starting to get like sketches from Lemmy, and he would, email them through Stefan and send them to me. And we were getting good results, and things were selling really well, and he was really happy. And I was just, I mean, to be honest, I was like, fuck, I got an email from Lemmy, man. He sent me this drawing and shit. I'm all excited, and then management called me up. I was at I had two young kids at the time, and I was at a fucking kid's birthday party, and they had a bouncy house, and I'm sitting there, I'm drinking like a cranberry juice or something on the side while the kids are screaming and shit. And I get a call from management, and they were asking me, Lemmy wants to know if you would be interested in doing an album cover. I'm like, what? And I'm like freaking out.
Wow.
So I'm like, fuck yeah, I'll do it. And then, watching my mouth, and kids are bouncing around, and I'm like, I'm sitting at a kid's birthday party, and I just got asked to do an album cover for like my favorite band in the whole fucking world. And I was just like, oh
Wow.
my God. So, and yeah, so I got to do Motorizer, and then a couple other
Wow.
albums, and me and Lemmy, and through Stefan Shirazi, we just became this triad of Lem's got an idea, he's going to send me a sketch, I put in my input, Mark, you do it. And from there was nothing we couldn't do. I mean, we were just cranking out. I did like 95% of the tour merch, all their tour
Wow.
credentials. I was doing their stage sets. I was doing the album covers. Mickey D called me up one day. He wanted me to design his drum wrap. Sonar picked it up. They were selling his the drum wrap for the snare drum. They would fly me out to shows. I mean, it was like a kid in a candy
Wow.
store, a dream come true. I mean, another mind blowing aspect to like a kid who was just sitting in the park who scribbled on the back of his army jacket, and now I'm like fucking doing an album cover for Lemmy Kilmister. I was like, fucking pinch me, man. I
What
mean, it just
albums specifically?
did Motorizer, and I did The World Is Yours. Um,
Wow.
the next one, Aftershock, Lemmy had an idea, and he met this young artist guy who's amazing, and he painted that cover for Aftershock. So I skipped a cycle, and then Lemmy was pretty starting to get ill, and he started thinking about his 40th anniversary and a couple of other things that were going on. And 40th? No, yeah, 40th. Wait a minute. Is it 40? Yeah. Well, it's the 40th album. I'm sorry. It was past the 50th
Hmm.
anniversary, but the 40th album. And so we did Bad Magic, and that had a lot of other iterations that evolved into that, and it started out as God damn it, was it the 40th? I think it was the 40th anniversary shirt, and then it became kind of a backdrop, and he had this idea, and this is where I think where Lemmy had always had just a clear picture in his mind of what he wanted, and he would just do it and get it done. And I was pretty fast at being able to interpret what he wanted and put it into a finished form, and we'd approve it. So we always shared, the art direction was Lemmy, and I was just the graphic artist that took his realization and put it into finished form. But we worked really well together on those levels. And this one, I could tell he was struggling with, instead of having that one idea and that's going to be it, just get it done. It was like, I want this. And then it became, well, ooh, I like, maybe let's change it. And it was, had I known that was going to be the last thing we ever did, it wouldn't have changed the process at all. But now looking back on it, it was like I think he, for the first time, at least for me, he really wanted it to be exactly right. Because I think somewhere in his mind, he knew it was the last one. And that's a leap. But
Wow.
that's a
Yeah.
leap only because it was so vastly different. Like I said, I was the guy, and then Aftershock, and he had his idea, and he had this guy's style in mind, and it came together immediately, just like our stuff had in the past. So that's what kind of a laser focus Lemmy just seemed to have in the small window that I worked with them. I worked for 9 years.
Wow.
And that last one, we he would change his mind and change it and change it, and it would just, even Stefan would comment on it where it was like, this is not normal, this was really just tough. So anyway,
Wow, man.
that but yeah, I just, I'm not a heavily religious person, but I'm blessed, man. I've been able to do stuff for people that have made my head, top of my head come off and spin around a couple of times and land back on, hopefully on right on in line. But it's just been, it's still going too. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I just down for Newstead's 10th anniversary for his album. And we did a show in Florida, and I designed all the merch and sold it, and I was kind of getting the crew back together, and I was like a pig in shit. I was fucking loving it. I loved the fact that I was there to work. And I told him, I said, I'm not coming unless you put me to work, because that's what it was about. It's a team effort, and I hold true to that all the time. So I love that.
That's
I'm not
awesome,
there to
man.
not there to lig. I'm not there to be a punter. That's what they used to call them, I guess, back in, or at least the English did call them punters. You're just here to hang around and just look pretty in the corner. And I said, well, that ain't gonna happen with this face. So You better put me to work, man. Put me behind something in a dark corner somewhere so I don't scare nobody. But keep me working. That's what I like.
Can bands like hit you up and like do you do just art for
Yeah,
any band? Any
absolutely. The best way to get in touch with I just started a website. It's called DIY Rock World. Fucking hate that name, but that's one I could get as a URL. I'm late to the game. I'm devilwearsprada.com or whatever you want.
yeah.
DIYrockworld.com. And I'll do a backdrop for you, logo, t-shirt design, whatever you need. If you need fucking pencils or koozies, I can do that too. Uh, Backdrops, all that shit. I still do it. I still have my heavy metal baby clothing line. I started when my son was born, Metal Babies. But yeah, you can always, anybody could reach out, even just to ask questions. I don't give, I love talking about stuff. I've probably burned up too much of your time already
No,
babbling
no,
about
no,
all
no.
this.
I am
But
completely free today.
oh, rad.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I know you have
but yeah,
something though, so we'll wrap up.
I, I, I'm always working. So, I mean, I drive a school bus now because a friend of mine I grew up with, he drove transit after he was Jeff Hanneman's guitar tech for years, and
Wow.
he's been working for bands forever, working for Tool and worked for Slayer for a good long chunk of time. And anyway, he's worked for a lot of bands, and when he came off the road, he decided to get a job as a transit bus driver. And we've known each other since we were little kids, and so we kind of always checking in on each other and seeing it. And he goes, "Man, I miss the road. I want to go back out on the road, but I don't want to sling gear and shit." So I said, "Well, you got your commercial driver's license now that you're a bus driver. Why don't you get a job at a tour bus company?" Fucking A, if he didn't do that, and now he drives a Monomarth around.
Oh
He's out
wow.
there right now. Yeah.
I
So,
yeah, I just saw him on a Marth, funny enough. So
oh,
wow.
did they do the rowing?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Hands down. I'm sorry, but that's a topper, man. That will go down in some kind of history, man. As like, you know, that's a finally a great answer to the sports, the wave. It's like, no, fucking get your
Yeah.
back into it, man. I love that shit.
They
That's fucking
so awesome. They got the giant inflatable like statues on each side
yeah.
of the stage too. The last time I saw them was like 2016, I want to say. So it was like
That's
seeing them
awesome.
again. It was like, whoa, the production's way bigger. Just such an
Yeah.
awesome band and like kind of modern too.
Yeah. Modern, but I love I love that. I always felt like Metallica were kind of, I don't want to know what toothpaste they use or what they had for breakfast. It's like I like the mystique. I like the band at one end, and as much as you like the band is how close you got, how much pain and and violence you were willing to succumb to because of your love of the band. But if you were like in the back or in the front, whatever,
Yeah.
that's the hierarchy that keeps the mystique, the band at one end and you at the other, because it's hard to look up to somebody that that they prefer grape nuts as opposed to Fruit Loops or something.
Yeah.
You just whatever it is. I like that, and the majesty of it. I miss that when I was a kid and I first saw AC/DC and that bell coming down. It was like,
I can't
you know
imagine, man. That was
it,
probably insane.
but that you're a monomarth. That's your Hell's Bell coming down. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
fuck. If you're a kid and or you a younger person and you look up and you see something that makes you go, fuck, that's cool. That's what it's all about. It's not when you got into it. It's not how you got it. It's that you were there and you had that oh fuck moment, because those oh fuck moments become your touchstone for everything else you do in life. I mean, it's like, and we all have them and we all get them, and none is more important or more, mythological. Just because it happened earlier with a different band doesn't decrease the importance of that moment. And that's what it's all about, is that connection that you have to a band, because that's where it all comes down. That's where the rubber meets the road. That's where that you've got your tribe. You're gonna see those same people next year, or you'll see some new fans, you'll see older fans. That's your tribe, and the more shows and more bands you get into, the bigger your tribe is. And then all of a sudden you're like, man, I remember seeing this band when there was 10 of us, and they had a inflatable rubber duck. Now we got this giant fucking inflatable, dragon ship, and we're all on the floor, and the beer and the Dixie cups, rowing and shit. That
Yeah.
that I mean, if that was my first moment, I'd be just as pleased as punch.
Yeah, and the serpent comes up, and it's just
Oh
so
shit.
awesome. When they go into like Twilight of the Thunder God, it's like, oh my God. It's so awesome, and that's so beautifully said. Um, and you go to these shows, and you go see, like, Eric Clapton, a lot of reading glasses, you know what I
Oh yeah.
mean? A lot of the same people. I saw Megadeth, and it's like, I'm like, oh my God, a lot of the people, like, I was born in 98, and there's a ton of people here younger than I am.
Sure.
There was such a spectrum of fans, which is
Exactly.
so awesome to see. And metal is like how it just is gonna live on. And
Oh,
it
absolutely.
translates to everybody. And it's just so
It
awesome to
does.
see.
And it validates their affinity for this. I mean, grew up with, why are you listening to that? That's not music. And you're like, do I like it because you don't like it? No, I like it because I like it. And I don't care if there's only three other people. I mean, I'd be at shows at Ruthie's Inn where I'm looking at this band and I go, they're going to go places, but there's only like five of us, and four of us didn't pay. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, that is not a good yardstick to go by as far as talent. Or if it moves you, then it's good.
Hmm.
That's all there is to it. And what uh, there were people that I grew up with that were like, oh man, now everybody likes them, I'm not going to go watch. And it's like, well, if you don't like them anymore, then don't go. But if you still like them, who gives a fuck if somebody's just finding that was you, that was me. Shit, I came
Yeah.
to the party late. Am I less of a fan? Do I like the music any less or any more than you? What is it? Why does there have to be a competition? It does, you know, there are as many complainers out there as there are fans. So it's like, whatever. It is what it is. You get in where you get in and fit in where you fit in. And fuck, it's no less than anybody else. And I mean, I felt like shit, man. I'm late to the game, but pretty soon, you talk to people and they go, "Look, you saw that," and it's like, well, at the time, I didn't know, it was going to be, you're just
Yeah.
you're filling a few hours on a Saturday night, and all of a sudden you're in the presence of greatness, and shit, that's going to happen.
There's
I mean,
definitely
that.
there's way more community now in metal. We've come such a far away from like Paul Bailoff having fans rip off Motley Crue shirts off people. Now
Oh
it's
yeah.
like, especially with bands like Ghost and stuff, which people are very like divided on. But like, you go to like, I saw Ghost recently because of like a Monomarth, and it was just
Oh
such an
yeah.
awesome lineup, and it's like 20 minutes from my house. I'm like, oh, I'm going to that. And the
Oh yeah.
fans were like everywhere from, black metal shirts to, like, of course, like Ghost. And it's like, whoa, you know, who
Oh yeah.
knew after, like, 40 years or whatever, how much this genre would fluctuate, like between more like pop
Exactly.
metal and like the most hardcore, sounding stuff, but everyone's still so close, and there's such a sense of community still,
Absolutely,
you know?
absolutely,
What
and
other
that's
genre?
important too. It's super important, and Ghost is another one of those bands that just like. I mean, again, I'm older. I have young kids. Now they're not young. Uh, that's how old I am. But when my kids were pretty young, I took them to see. Me and my wife took my my young daughter, who's at the time I think she was 6, and then my son was 9 or 10 uh, at the time, and we took them to see Ghost. And my kids listened to, like, when I drove them around, or my wife would drive, we'd listen to ACDC, Ramones, simple 3/4 time beats, 2/4 time beats, and they just loved it. They loved the Clash, they loved Ramones, they loved ACDC. And then I started playing Ghost for them, and they just loved it, and they loved the whole concept of the face makeup. So when we took them to see Ghost. They were just little kids, and they did their own makeup. And my 6-year-old, you could kind of tell it was like to be Papa, but did it herself. Still looked awesome, and people went absolutely nuts at the show. Like all everybody was coming up trying to take a picture of them. The news, there was a news camera guy there, and they interviewed him and stuff like that. But the
Wow.
band saw my kids in the audience, and my daughter specifically, because she leaned on one of the tables and was like leaning into it, like, right, I mean, just so into it. And Tobias saw her, and sent the manager out to where we were at, and invited the kids to go backstage. And so we went with them. There was nobody else back there. And one by one, all the band come out and introduce themselves and sit with my kids. And they're
Wow.
signing things and giving them guitar. But I mean, it was like so. And for my daughter, it was like, who are these people? Because they had all taken all their makeup off. So I was bummed because the mystery was gone, and I wanted the mystery. And my daughter was like, "Who the fuck are these guys?" Not kidding, yeah, but it was like, "Who the fuck is,
Yeah,
what's going
yeah.
on?" But my son was like, "Wow, I got the drumsticks," and he's a drummer. So anyway, it was, but that 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 moment for them, I could sit back and watch. It wasn't about me; it was about them and their experience. So that put it in another perspective for me. It was like, it was where before I might be like, oh man, I didn't get to go backstage and meet the band, and I really like the band or whatever. They were going to go, they went, and I was happy for them. The band didn't want to have anything to do with me or my wife. They were focused on the kids. And when they asked if we wanted something, I was like, nope, this is their night. It was all about them.
Yeah.
And it was great. So anyway,
What
I'll
era
leave
of
it at,
Ghost?
huh?
What era of Ghost was that?
Infested. I'm
Oh
going to
wow, the
pronounce it
second,
wrong.
yeah, I can't even either. The sophomore release.
Yeah, and it
It's
was great.
it's crazy because a lot of people bash that band because it's like, oh, they're pop, oh, whatever. You listen to that, especially that first record where
First record gave
every
me
song
chills.
they praise Satan. There's literally a song where the chorus is 666,
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
exactly.
and it's
I
like,
loved it because it was like, it gave me the same chill when I had first heard. A good friend of mine was into a lot heavier stuff than I was back early, and he got Welcome to Hell, and when it had come out, and I went over to his house, and I've been listening to ACDC and some heavy things, but not that level. There was something about that album. It was so demonic. I literally gave me chills. It gave me. I was like, these guys are tempting the devil.
me
It
too,
really
man.
felt
Yeah.
like shit, man. Don't burn a candle, man. It's gonna happen,
Yeah.
And I swore that game, but that first Ghost album, uh, I was like, they got something, and it was melodic enough to draw me in, but scary enough to go, man, these guys are serious. It's like, and the mystique. That's what I got really. That next one was like, oh my god, it was like
It's like they're doing something. They're going somewhere, you
they're
know.
going
And then
somewhere with this.
Meliora
It's
came
not
out,
just
and
a
it was
flash.
like some of the, it's almost like some of it reminded me of King Crimson. Like there was
Yeah,
so many cool elements of
progressive.
that. Yeah, progressive he is, which is such a cool song.
Oh, he is, man.
Amazing.
That's like gospel music for the damned. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my god, it is. I mean, and my kids still listen to it, and we're in the car, and it's like, put on Square Hammer. No,
Yeah.
no, I want to hear Dance Macabre. It's like, all right. And we got my friend who drives for Amon. They're out with Ghost, and the year before it was oh crap, Ghost and Twin Temple. Oh,
Yes.
and they a Volbeat or somebody like that.
Yeah.
I don't like Volbeat, but anyway, Twin Temple were great.
I saw
Um,
Twin Temple recently on their first headlining tour.
oh,
Um
cool. They
Incredible.
still do the ritual on
Oh
stage and
my,
everything.
even more. Like they're
Oh,
pouring
that's
blood on their face on in a chalice. It was like, whoa.
have
It's
you gone to
definitely
their website and looked at their videos and stuff?
no,
Oh, dude, go to Twin Temple and check it out.
I
The
will.
merchandise, but they have these videos. Oh my god, I mean, they get it's X rated, man. They get into it, or
Is it
not X.
really?
It's pretty hardcore, but I mean, they walk the walk. They live the life, man. They are all
They
about that.
definitely do. And it's like even the music. I have their debut and their only album signed by both of them.
Oh,
Um
killer.
yeah, I got it at the show, and it was just the show they put on. Because like, you know, at Ghost, no one was really, they're like, oh, this is cool, you know. But when like in the little intimate, their first headlining
Oh
tour,
yeah,
it was incredible. Like
that.
the stuff they were able to do, like between songs, and
Oh
the
yeah.
like theatrical element of it was just, it was like, whoa, it was so
Oh
present,
yeah.
you know.
Oh,
And it's like
totally.
if
With
they
the
ever come
candelabras
oh my
and the
god.
ritual with the thing. Oh, I saw them open up. I would have never have known about them hadn't I saw them open up for Uncle Acid and the Deadbeats. They were playing with Graveyard,
That's
and it
awesome.
was
That's an
and
awesome
they were the
lineup.
opening guy, and no one knew anything about them. And all of a sudden they came on, and I was like, holy cow, man, these guys, this is fucking, it was theater. It was so good. It was so well done. Anyway, I just became an immediate fan of them. But anyway, he was
Me
out with,
too, man.
so uh, he got, me and my wife and my daughter moved up to Portland about 3.5 years ago. But anyway, when he came through town, he was driving for Ghost just before this last one, so he got us to meet Papa and stuff like that, and that was cool. And they had backstage, laying in stay, all the iterations of Papa,
I've seen
all
it.
laying
Yeah.
in stage,
They're on
and
little
it was
coffins or
yeah,
something. Yeah, yeah.
under glass, and I was just like, oh my god, and we were just blown away. But I love that whole. It may be campy, but it's like, I like to be entertained. I wanna wonder. I like the wonderment. I like the mystery of it. And it should be. They should be not necessarily above us, but just so apart from us, so that you can. There's nothing wrong with being in awe of something. I just there's something. Just otherwise you got me on a stage, on a folding chair, and it's like no one's going to pay to see that. I want to be entertained, man. I want the fucking bell to come down, at least come down and
Yeah,
kill the guy
yeah.
who's sitting on the folding chair, just bam.
Yeah, and there is an element of campiness, but I feel like I forgive it, you know, especially with the music,
Oh
the album covers, like the merch can be silly, you know, but it's like I don't
yeah.
really care. Like, and it's so like funny because you see people bash this band on like Facebook or wherever all the time,
Oh yeah.
especially Loudwire. Anytime they post something on Ghost, you see someone like Ghost suck, it's a pop band. You look at their profile picture and they're wearing like a Kiss shirt. It's like, all right,
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
take
exactly.
Square Hammer or like Mariana Cross over Lick It Up any day.
Oh
You know
yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean? Kiss
exactly.
literally went through the same exact arc, but Ghost
Totally,
did it,
totally.
in my opinion, way better. Where they kept with the evil satanic
Yeah,
theme, where Kiss kind of, even with like music from the Elder and stuff, kind of lost me, but
yeah. They got back on track, and then they fell off. I mean, again, no one's gonna. Who's to say what is the right way and the wrong way to go about your career? Because your
yeah.
personality is your personality, and you're gonna do what you're gonna do. If your fans hold on for all of it, or even most of it, then you got a good thing going on. I also, I mean, I grappled with it personally too. It's like I felt like, man, why did they change? Why did Lulu happen? Why, I mean, it's like, I get it. I get you want to try something different, but again, that's who am I to say, that somebody doesn't really like Lulu. Personally, I didn't think James would ever, sing a song about furniture, but there it is. I am the table or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't even, but that again, that's artistic expression, and it's like they do things, and yeah, you should be open to critique, but it doesn't make you a bad band or whatever. You just tried something and maybe it didn't work for everybody, so whatever, it is what it is. It's artistic expression.
Yeah, and a lot of people forgive it just because they grew up with it, and then when another band does it, it's like, oh, that's bad. I just
Right.
can't get behind that personally. And it's like I rather have a band have that ambition and want to innovate, because
Yeah.
that same innovation is where thing like the Black Album came from. And yeah, you might get the music from the Elder or the Lulu, but it's growing
Yeah.
pains. Sometimes I rather have a band experiment instead of just treading the same water where it's just every album is like, oh, it's just the last one, but a little more boring.
Yeah,
Where,
exactly.
keep it interesting. You know what I mean? And I feel like
Keep
Ghost
it
is doing that, and many
interesting and
bands
keep a
are.
roof over your head,
Yeah.
and don't take everything so seriously. I mean, that's the other thing is, I think people, it's hard to hold on to something if you take it too seriously, because it can get untenable, and then you set yourself up. If you say, hey, we're only doing it this way, we'll never do this. And there are a lot of bands, including Metallica, that have said that.
Yeah.
Were they held to a different standard after they said it? Yeah, they got a little flack for it, but like they said, we'd never do a video. Well, never say never, right? You never say never. Are you going to condemn them and never going to watch them again, or go see them again? No, of course not. But you know, people are there. Bands are human, and but yeah, it's
Yeah. Be a fan, support the band.
exactly, yeah,
It's their
exactly,
band, not yours. you
exactly.
know?
So download the album. You don't like it that much, fuck
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. All right, man. This has been awesome. This has been a great discussion. Let's
Yeah,
definitely
thank
keep
you.
in
That this is
touch. Yeah.
definitely.
You were saying some bands. I'll have to go back and uh
Oh yeah,
see
Sacrilege
what you said.
BC.
Yeah,
I
if
mean,
you can
there.
just text me a whole list of some of the Bay Area bands for me to
If
check
it's Bay
out.
Area only, then yeah. I mean,
And we can
I
go
mean,
from there later.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Because
Yeah.
trust me, there are a lot of bands that but and Sabotage. I saw that you interviewed, was he
Chris.
Gaffney, Chris Caffrey.
Yeah.
Uh, fuck that band. That was another unifier in the Bay Area. Even though they're from Florida, everybody was like fucking Sabotage when they
Really?
played. Oh, dude, when they came, everybody. They played it at the Stone one time with this local band Trouble, who are
I
great. We're a great band. Uh,
think I've heard of
uh,
them. I might
oh,
have.
if you like the Saint Vitus
Yes, I
heavy
know Trouble.
stuff,
Yeah.
Trouble where you get the skull. That's like, whoa, great
Yeah, I
band.
know Trouble.
But they came to town, and every band was there. All of Exodus, all of Metallica, everybody came to pay homage to watch those guys play, because Dungeons are calling and Sirens are just like,
Oh,
I mean, just great fucking band. But
Hall the
yeah,
Mountain King too
I'll text you a
is
list.
incredible. Yeah, man. Well, this has been
I'll text you
awesome.
a list of Bay Areas that some are kind of harder to find and some are kind of tongue in cheek, but it's still good stuff and worth at least a delve into. But yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, that's my whole kind of like goal with this whole podcast thing I'm doing. Like, it's really like I like building up a little like archive. You know
Oh,
what I
totally.
mean? Like, that's why I really want to get Laws Rocket on, because there's like no interviews of them at all,
No,
and not
and
even
it's
really an interview. I'm just looking at almost like a podcast format. Shoot the
sure.
shit, learn about the band, some of the origins, the writing and recording processes. So much
Yeah,
to
and
dive
then
into.
definitely their exploitations as far as what they did out on tour, and just, I mean, again, if I was ever to do a biography about a band, that's the one, and I think that's what piqued my interest when you were like, I was like, oh fuck, Gel, come on, but Gel's dealing with uh, some family issues and some stuff, and maybe he's not ready yet. But we'll keep a light on for him, because
I'm
I think
patient.
he's,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it'll happen. And when it does, I think you'll have the scoop on everybody, because I mean, that was the other thing. I don't know if you've seen Murder in the Front Row.
Yes. Yeah.
So Murder in the Front Row, they really, I mean, they should have given Laws a lot more
They were
airtime.
mentioned a few times. Yeah, but that was
Very
it.
few, but
Yeah.
only in relation to how they made him a footnote. And I hate to say it, not that I was a huge fan of the band, in the whatever, the Parthenon of Bear and metal bands, but they have a significant history that should be, it's part of the history, and it really does need to be told. And there are unique characters that help define that scene, and for them to be not included, yeah, I
A
take issue.
shame. A
I know
shame.
that. Yeah, I know that Zetro had some issues with not being invited in it, even though the era was not. It was a little past, but not. I mean, he should have probably been in there, but
Still like a
uh,
precursor, if anything. You know what I
oh,
mean? Like,
exactly.
it's just ridiculous. But yeah, man, that's how I got in contact with you, because I brought up to Howard Smith how, like,
Yeah,
I'd
Howard's
love
great.
to, like, I was like, yo, I'd love to get Laws Rocket on at some point. He's like, oh, I know exactly who I got to get you in contact with. And here we
Oh
are.
man.
So it worked out really well. And it was such a honor being able to talk to you and learning all these
Oh,
cool
likewise.
things.
Thank you, man. I dig
Man,
what you're doing. I've been checking out the channel, and I love your intro. That's fucking killer. That there was an old horror movie, TV movie thing called Creature Features. I'm sure every town
yeah,
has one, like
yeah.
Elvira or whatever. We had this Bob Wilkins guy, but the opening was always, Creature Features, and it had the mixture of the, like Exorcist, or the where she's looking at the candle and it goes up, and it just brought back a nice chill to my spine that I hadn't had for a while. It's perfect, right
Well,
on
that's
point.
the goal,
Thank
man.
you. No, it's awesome, man. That's perfect, man. I wish you all the best and all the luck. And if there's anybody else too that you're interested, that I might be able to connect up with you, I'll definitely pass your name along if you're interested. But I'll text
100%.
you some names of some bands. And Sacrilege, if you like their stuff, uh, might be it's a worthwhile. And
Totally,
Harold
man.
O. Harold O too. I don't know. He's got great stories too, and Brian Liu. I don't know if you've talked with those guys.
I have not. No, I'd love to. I'm so open to having so many of these people on. It'd just be
Oh,
really
cool. Well,
awesome. Well,
anything I can do to help, because I appreciate your time and let me blather on. And if you edit it down to about a good 30 seconds, you might, you know, I could
oh no,
sell
man,
some
we're
soap.
keeping all of this.
Oh
well,
shit. Oh man.
well, listen, man, I'm Brandon Battick, and this has been Disturbing the Priest.